and acknowledge the diverse Indigenous peoples whose ancestors' footsteps have marked this territory for centuries, such as Cree, Dene, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Nakota Sioux, as well as Inuit and now settlers from around the world. And before I do a roll call, I will just go to the clerk for a safety briefing.
Thank you, Chair Rutherford. Good morning. Before we begin, I'll go over the emergency response plan for this room. In an emergency, everyone must evacuate through the nearest safe exit. Those seated in the gallery take direction from security to evacuate, and council takes direction from myself. After evacuating the room, please proceed to a stairwell, take the stairs to ground level, and evacuate the building through the doors marked emergency exit and go to the muster point. Do not take an elevator or walk through the city room. Anyone with limited mobility should identify themselves to security or to the meeting clerk, who is myself, during an evacuation. And finally, please speak with security or myself if you require first aid. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So now I'll do a roll call of committee members. Councillor Salvador.
Good morning.
Councillor Hamilton.
Good morning.
Good morning. Councillor Stevenson.
Good morning.
And we are joined in chamber by Councillor Tang.
Good morning.
And I'm just trying to go onto the Google to see if there's any other councillors joining virtually. Councillor Rice.
Good morning.
Councillor Wright.
Good morning.
And Councillor Principe.
Good morning.
And Councillor Jans.
Good morning.
Great, thank you. I'll take a motion for the adoption of the agenda.
I'll move the adoption of the agenda.
Any changes? Or just as presented? Perfect. Okay, please vote.
Councillor Stevenson is yes.
We have all the votes.
Please display the votes. And that is carried.
I'll move the approval of the minutes from the October 28th, 2024 Community and Public Services Committee meeting.
Thank you. And I did just receive a message from Councillor Knack, who wasn't able to join this morning, that there's just an omission from the minutes that he was in attendance via phone, but I think that the minute said he wasn't. So just if we could correct that for the record.
Thank you, Chair. We will correct that for the record.
Okay. Otherwise, please, any other errors or omissions? No? Okay. Please vote.
I'm a yes.
Thank you, Councillor Stevenson. We have all the votes.
Please display the votes. And that is carried. And we do have a protocol item this morning that I'm honored to present. Today is the recognition of the Days of Activism Against Gender Violence. So today marks the beginning of 16 days of activism against gender violence. From November 25th to December 10th, Canadians across the nation will be working to raise awareness and take action against this pervasive issue. This year's theme, Come Together, Act Now, highlights the importance of involving everyone, especially men and boys, to help change the social norms, attitudes, and behaviors that enable violence to occur. Men and boys can be leaders in spurring this progress. By being an example for others and speaking out whenever we see violence, we can also help create meaningful change. Everyone can become an ally by listening to victims, believing their experiences, and intervening in safe ways. Edmontonians can also participate in the 16 days of action by wearing purple, supporting local domestic violence shelters, and learning the signs and forms of abuse. For example, it's important to know that not all gender-based violence is physical. It can take a form of name-calling, stalking, harassment, control, cyber attacks, or manipulation. I urge everyone to take the opportunity to join Canada in helping make gender-based violence a thing of the past. Thank you. And now to select items for debate. We do have some speakers, so I will select the one item on our agenda, so 7.1. And I do have some questions about it as well, so. And so we do not have any reports that are not selected for debate to vote on. We do have requests to speak, so we have, sorry, I'm just going through all my papers. Do you have the request to speak? Would you like to move that motion?
Sure. I'll move the Community and Public Services Committee hear from the following speakers and panels when appropriate. For 7.1, updates to City Policy C529 Immigration Settlement, Samuel Giroux from the Africa Center, and Funke Olekude, the Multicultural Health Brokers Co-op.
Thank you. Please vote on hearing from those speakers.
We have all the votes.
Please display the votes. And that is carried. And we do not have any requests for time specific. We only have one item, so it will by default be first item of the day. Council inquiries. I didn't receive any notices for council inquiries. Reports to be dealt with at a different meeting, none. Request to reschedule reports, none. And unfinished business, none. So we are now able to move on to our public reports. So we will just give a minute for the delegation for 7.1 to come down and to do their presentation. Actually, while they're waiting to come down, I'll just also do the sort of the explanation for any public speakers. So for each item, administration will provide opening remarks or a presentation, and then members of the public who are registered to speak will be invited to make their presentations. Speakers will be heard in panels, and each speaker will have 5 minutes to present. The clerk will run the official timer in council chamber. The timer lights on the podiums will be green for the first 4 minutes, turn yellow when there is 1 minute remaining, and flash red when the 5 minutes are up. If you are participating virtually, you may wish to use a timer of your own. When everyone in your panel has had a chance to present, members of council may ask questions of you or other panel members. For this reason, you may wish to remain in the meeting until all questions have been asked of the panel. If you are participating virtually, please remember to mute your microphone when you're not speaking and refrain from using the raised hand function, as it creates issues of fairness and decorum. If you are experiencing any technical difficulties, please reach out to the office of the city clerk using the contact information provided in your confirmation of registration. If you are here with us in person, the clerk will guide you to your seat when it is your turn to speak. In the event of an emergency, please follow the clerk's directions to evacuate. City staff will direct you to your muster point. So please take it away. Is the admin ready for their presentation? Please go ahead.
Thank you and good morning. My name is Jennifer Flaman, Deputy City Manager for Community Services. Thank you for having us here to present the updates to City Policy C529, Immigration and Settlement. Here with me today are Stacey Galotly, Branch Manager, Social Development, Chelsea Horlak, Director, Safe and Healthy Communities, Stephanie O'Kell, Manager, Social Planning and Policy, and from our legal department, Ariza Jiwa. The decision we're requesting from committee is to recommend the updated City Policy C529, now titled Migrant Inclusion, to Council for approval. The review and refresh of City Policy C529 was undertaken at the direction of committee on August 25, 2021 and May 31st, 2023, and developed in consultation with the community. Bringing forward this work is timely given the recent population influx Alberta is experiencing. I'll now pass it over to Chelsea Horlak to walk you through our presentation.
Good morning. Edmonton is preparing to reach a population of 2 million, with immigration being the largest driver of population growth. In 2022 to 2023 alone, the Edmonton Census Metropolitan Area experienced record population growth, with over 38,000 newcomers settling in the area. As the city's demographics continue to evolve, proactively understanding and preparing for this growth and supporting early, intentional, and informed migrant inclusion in Edmonton will be key to realizing the city plan. The update to City Policy C529 is timely as it enables us to explore how we welcome migrants to our city, leverage their diverse talents, skills, and perspectives, and enable them to make meaningful contributions to their new community. This work will be essential to positioning Edmonton as an attractive destination to develop and retain global talent. The update to City Policy C529 involved 4 phases, all grounded in a people-informed approach, which aimed to ensure that the people most impacted by the policy informed its development. The first phase involved a community-led review of the original policy to assess the relevance. 239 participants, ranging from migrants, City of Edmonton staff, council advisory committees, and community organizations, contributed their knowledge and experiences to the review. Phase 2 involved compiling the findings from engagements into themes and presenting them back to the community for validation. The validated findings and a cross-jurisdictional scan of how other municipalities were supporting the settlement sector were then utilized to inform a draft of the updated C529 policy. Phase 3 involved re-engaging the community in Q1 2024 to review and validate the revised C529A draft policy. 87 participants, representing individuals with lived experience, thought leaders, and those who work with migrant communities, contributed their insights during the validation process. During Phase 4, the feedback from validation sessions was integrated into the revised C529A policy, now titled Migrant Inclusion. The title of the policy was amended from Immigration and Settlement to Migrant Inclusion to be more inclusive of the different categories of migrants residing in Edmonton and better reflect the jurisdictional space the City of Edmonton has to support migrants. For the purpose of this policy, migrants are defined as individuals born outside of Canada or their immediate descendants who have settled in Edmonton. This definition strives to achieve a balance between being broad enough to recognize the diversity of the migrant population and create space and inclusion for the different categories of migrants regardless of immigration status, but narrow enough to not dilute the intent of the policy, which is to support the unique challenges that come from settling into a new country. The engagement findings supported 6 focus areas in the policy for the city to advance to promote migrant inclusion through various activities within the corporation. Inclusive economy refers to the city's role as an employer and procurer in modeling inclusive employment and tendering practices as migrants continue to experience persistent underemployment. The work in this area is also reflected in Edmonton's Economic Action Plan and the city's Art of Inclusion framework. Service access and equity speaks to the city's role as a service provider to promoting inclusion and addressing the disproportionate barriers, such as language and culture, experienced by migrants. The essence of this focus area is central to many of the city's strategic plans, including the City Plan and Connect Edmonton. Neighborhood inclusion refers to the experiences of migrant inclusion in our neighborhoods, ranging from feelings of belonging to encounters of prejudice and bias. As neighborhoods are where migrants settle first, this focus area refers to the city's role in supporting inclusion, celebrating diversity, and promoting migrant involvement with local decision-making. This is consistent with the pillars of the community safety and well-being strategy. Accessible communication and civic participation involves the city's responsibility in supporting meaningful civic engagement and intentional connection with migrants. Data for action refers to improving the city's capacity in collecting disaggregated data for equity-deserving groups to inform service provision and address emerging needs. The call for disaggregated data is consistent with the city's anti-Black racism action plan. Leadership in advocacy and implementation cites the city's role as a convener in working alongside other orders of government and the community to positively advance migrant outcomes, particularly as it concerns the unique experiences of migrants in Edmonton. Next slide, please. Within the migrant supporting ecosystem, there are many stakeholders involved in providing immigration and settlement supports. These include other orders of government as well as local community organizations. Primary and formal jurisdiction over immigration lies with the federal and provincial government, who work collaboratively to set immigration targets in terms of the number of people and types of skills needed to meet the province's economic needs. They also provide funding to local community service providers to support integration and settlement. The community is also instrumental in providing support to migrants through formal and direct settlement supports and through informal support networks like religious institutions, family, and friends. While the City of Edmonton has no direct role in immigration, it is with city services that migrants interact daily, whether this be through public transportation or accessing recreational centers. Cities are where migrants live, work, play, and build community. As a municipality, we have a unique opportunity and responsibility to reflect the diverse needs of Edmontonians by championing policies and practices that welcome migrants and actively leverage their diverse skills to foster a vibrant and inclusive city. The needs of migrants are complex and multifaceted. Accordingly, it is important that all of those in the migrant-serving ecosystem, including other orders of government and multi-sector community organizations, work collaboratively and collectively towards advancing migrant outcomes. I will now pass it on to Stephanie Okel to share some of the current and proposed upcoming work to support migrant inclusion.
Supporting the migrant community is not new work in the City of Edmonton. There have been active and ongoing efforts to advance migrant inclusion and integration. These include direct support avenues through many of the city's equity-based policies, strategies, programs, and services. Indirect support avenues through the Anti-Racism Grant, Emerging Immigrant and Refugee Committee Grant, and the Community Safety and Wellbeing Grant programs. Convening and advocacy support avenues through administration's role in initiatives like the Edmonton Local Immigration Partnership and State of Immigration and Settlement Report, which work to elevate the voice of migrants and highlight the needs and opportunities in supporting migrants. Should Council approve, the next phase of this work includes developing a migrant action plan aligned with the updated city policy C529A. The plan will aim to provide clear guidance for how administration can provide services and support, foster partnership, and advocate for migrants. It will ensure current and future initiatives and intentional, focused, and effective in meeting the needs of migrants. Next slide, please. Essentially, the Migrant Action Plan aims to serve as an implementation roadmap to support intentioned and collaborative action in the 6 community-identified focus areas: inclusive economy, service access and equity, data for action, neighborhood inclusion, accessible communication and civic participation, and leadership and advocacy and implementation. The plan will include the following components: a needs assessment that focuses on understanding the current state and future trajectory of immigration and outlining the City of Edmonton's roles and responsibilities in supporting migrants in context with all city services available. This data may be shared with funders, policy and decision makers, and the general public to help contextualize the migrant context and experience in Edmonton and support evidence-based decision making for funding decisions and new initiative development and design. A cross-corporate initiative to develop a corporate plan that clarifies administration's optimal roles in the migrant-serving ecosystem, unite efforts, and set clear goals to advance migrant outcomes in Edmonton. A plan to work with community partners, identifying areas for direct action and opportunities for collaboration, considering jurisdictional boundaries. The plan will be informed by migrant-serving organizations and explore opportunities to integrate and work collectively with existing community initiatives like ELIP and the State of Immigration and Settlement Report. It is envisioned that the cross-corporate initiative or corporate plan will define how each department can contribute to the inclusion of migrants. The community collaborative plan will emphasize the role of community organizations and their contributions with and without the city in supporting the migrant-serving sector. Both plans will involve active engagement and community and have an evaluation and communication plan integrated into them. The key deliverables, timelines, and specific metrics for measuring and reporting on implementation progress will be determined during the Migrant Action Plan engagement and once the plan is developed. The Migrant Action Plan will also include a funding review to ensure the city is positioned within its parameters to best respond to the needs of migrants and advance the implementation of the Migrant Action Plan. This plan will also seek to attract and optimize investments made by other orders of government where appropriate. Administration intends to return to Council with the corporate plan in 2026 for approval. A return date on other plan aspects will be determined following consultation with community. Next slide. While the specific role and commitment of the city to support migrants will be determined through the Migrant Action Plan development process, namely through the corporate and community partner plans, it is envisioned that the city will have 3 streams from which to support migrant inclusion in Edmonton. The first is through services and support, which relates to administration's ability to directly influence the outcomes of migrants in its role as an employer through procurement and as a service provider. This work can be done through the development of inclusion and accessible policies and programs. The second is through partnerships, as administration works alongside its intergovernmental partners and the community as a funder, procurer of goods and services, and collaborator to build capacity in the migrant-serving ecosystem. One example is the city's sustainable procurement policy, which aims to find pathways for business owned by equity-deserving individuals, but can influence the city's supplier and partners to provide employment, subcontracting, training, and apprenticeships opportunities to equity-deserving individuals, including newcomers to Canada. The third is through advocacy, where the city can utilize its convener lever to support initiatives that advance migrant outcomes, and through a better understanding of migrant needs, develop plans to seek investments and funding opportunities from other orders of government where appropriate. In summary, the Migrant Inclusion Policy and Migrant Action Plan aim to make concrete how we will welcome migrants to our city, support their integration, and uplift their talents, skills, and perspectives as city builders. Next slide. Through proactively and intentionally ensuring that the design, development, and delivery of city policies and programs are responsive to the settlement needs of migrants, the city is better positioned to identify gaps and opportunities that advance the outcomes for migrants in Edmonton, which in turn will have the impact of advancing the city's own economic and social vibrancy. Thank you.
Thank you, and now we will move on to speakers. So I'm just going to call your name just to make sure you're here, and if you're in chambers, the clerk will direct you to your spot. But before we begin, I do have a little bit of a preamble on expectations. So Samuel, are you with us virtually?
Good morning, Councillor Rutherford. Yes, I am online.
Thank you. And then Funke, please come down, and like I said, the clerk will direct you to where to sit. And so before we begin our discussion, I just want to share my expectations for the conduct of everyone participating to assure a safe and inclusive environment and workplace. These expectations apply equally to both in-person and virtual attendees. Hearing from the public is an important part of Council's process to ensure we hear the full diversity of opinions that exist in our community. As meeting chair, I have the responsibility to ensure the safety of all participants in today's meeting. As part of that responsibility, inappropriate comments or gestures will not be tolerated. If they occur, I will direct the clerk to immediately remove anyone engaging in such behavior. The types of behavior that will result in removal from the meeting includes making disrespectful comments directed at individual staff members or other public speakers, or using profane language. Responsive behaviors to show support or dissent, such as shouting, cheering, clapping, or using the chat or emotion responses in Google Meet are also not permitted. I will not provide additional warnings, and once removed, the person will not be permitted to rejoin the meeting. This meeting is being live streamed, and everyone is welcome to view the live stream online. Again, my role as chair is not to moderate the nature of the content being discussed, but to ensure the chamber's behaviors are maintained to support a safe, respectful, and neutral place for my colleagues, city employees, and the public at large. I thank everyone in advance for your respectful participation in today's discussion. So with that, I will go first to Samuel Giroux with the Africa Centre. You have 5 minutes for your presentation.
Thank you, and good morning, City of Edmonton councillors and residents who are participating in this important discussion today. My name is Sam Giroux, and I'm the Executive Director of the Africa Centre. The Africa Centre is the biggest Black non-for-profit organization in Alberta and in Western Canada. And here in Edmonton, we work very closely with the African Caribbean descent and Black communities in general. I'm also here today in my capacity as part of the Shared Secretariat and the Community Collaboration Table of the Edmonton Local Immigration Partnership, ELIP. I'm here today in support of the recommended updates to City Policy C529. From the Africa Centre perspective, Just over a week ago, the Africa Center convened a town hall that was attended by about 50 leaders, representing 37 African and Caribbean country association leads. Our leaders identified similar observations that have been outlined in the council report today by administration, that we are seeing huge numbers of African descent migrants arrive in Edmonton, these last 4 years particularly. However, the new migrants are struggling with access to basic social, economic, and cultural drivers, including areas around employment, starting new businesses, recreational activities, housing, as well as general information on municipal services and supports. From the ILE perspective, where we are currently in the process of drafting the Edmonton Newcomer Inclusion Strategy, we recognize that close to half, 40% of the city of Edmonton's population is now comprised of migrants or the children of migrants. So we have a vision that we are coming up in terms of being able to have equity and access, resource and opportunities. Thus, we see the proposed updates to policy C529 as a tangible way in which all migrants to Edmonton would have access to economic, social, and cultural benefits. I'd also like to recommend and commend city administration on the robust public engagement that was done to inform the proposed new approach. Engagement that happened not only within the diverse communities and their representatives, but also we're really pleased as community members to see that this engagement also included 30 city staff. I believe when I read the report, about 58 city staff representing the different city departments took part in this engagement. I believe that this is a positive introspective approach that fosters trust and civic participation with the community. We are also really happy to see that the proposed updated immigration and settlement policy jives and brings cohesion off and with other progressive social policies that City Council has put in place in the last few years, including the annual State of Immigration and Settlement Report, the Refugee Housing Initiative, Access Without Fear, Community Safety and Wellbeing Strategy and aligned funding, as well as the City of Edmonton's anti-racism strategy in general, and as the Black community, of course, the anti-Black racism strategy and action plan. So we recognize and appreciate the work of city administration, the mayor and city council in instituting these human-centered policies. I thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we will go to our next speaker, Funke Olukunde. Please go ahead, you have 5 minutes. Make sure your mic is on. We can test first. Did you say hello?
Hello, hello. Oh, it's on.
Okay.
It's just too far. Sorry. Good morning, everyone. My name is Funke Olukunde, a migrant myself who came to Canada 21 years ago, and I have been blessed to call Edmonton home for the last 10 years. I am also the president of the Nigerian Canadian Association of Edmonton, one of the fastest growing migrant communities in our city. So for me, this is not just a policy. It is a gateway that ensures success for many Edmontonians. I speak to you today on behalf of the Multicultural Health Brokers Co-op, known to many as MCHB, an organization uniquely positioned to have insights on migrant communities in Edmonton, as it was created by migrants to serve their own communities. MCHB has grown organically alongside the diversity of Edmonton over the last 26 years, serving more than 30 distinct ethnocultural communities and families along a continuum of needs, from holistic one-on-one support to community development and organizing, facilitating spaces where newcomers truly have the opportunity to share their individual gifts and cultural wealth, thereby enriching the city as a whole. I welcome the revised policy and I encourage city councillors to accept today the recommended revised C59 policy on migrant inclusion. I hope city councillors are like me, proud of the fact that the process to update this 17-year-old policy has been centered in the voices, dreams, and expertise of Edmonton's newcomers. This revision has been a call to action to the city, and seeing this report today reflects the city's positive commitment to newcomers in our city. A revised migrant inclusion policy is a strong statement of the highest level of commitment that the city can make. It says to all Edmontonians that Edmonton aspires to be a city that works for all and one where all newcomers are welcomed, engaged, and find equitable opportunities to contribute to the growth and richness of Edmonton. The commitment to monitor results through the collection and analysis of the disaggregated data will provide assurance of continued improvement. In a time of fractured relations, these common values, coupled with accountability, will guide Edmonton as it grows to 2 million people. In 2015, MCHB started doing research into the distressing circumstances of housing precarity and food insecurity faced by so many who access our services. This led us to engage with City in an effort to develop a newcomer housing project to illustrate a model of developing housing that promotes a strong foundation and social inclusion. Our efforts to date resonate and align strongly with this policy in that it involves migrants directly in locating, designing, developing, and accessing housing that will address barriers and allow migrants to contribute their gifts to support each other and their wider neighborhood in ways that benefit the city as a whole. I would strongly encourage city councillors today to direct administration to address 2 points about next steps. Firstly, bring the migrant policy back to City Council by July 2025, not 2026. Newcomers and city staff have been involved in the revision of this policy. The actions needed to implement it have been shared and are very clear. Waiting until sometime in 2026, as the report suggests, to have next steps is not needed or desirable. Next steps are needed now. Secondly, direct at City Admin to explicitly identify a center of responsibility to advance this work. That will bring all city departments together to support the newcomer and equity lens needed to apply to all city services. We know that simply creating or revising a policy, as good as that is only just the first step. To be successful, it needs clearly designated leadership to lead the way. We have seen what the lack of a designated accountability means in the vacuum of leadership to implement the 2018 Access Without Fear policy. There are a group of organizations, including MCHB, who have been close companions of city administration over the past 20 years in working towards equity and inclusion of migrants. We are here, ready and willing to continue to work with the city to move forward with implementing this policy. Unfortunately, many of our colleagues in the migrant serving agencies are out of town today, attending national gatherings related to the settlement sector. Thank you all for your leadership and support in bringing an equity and inclusion lens to involve, engage, and work with newcomers in Edmonton.
Thank you very much. And now we will go to questions of the panel. I selected this item and I did put my name on the board, but it's not coming yet, so I will ask my question. I have 2 questions, because I actually had the same thing. As I read the report, I was a bit confused, because usually when we have a city policy, it's accompanied by an administrative procedural document. That's typically the way. So I thought it was weird that we were going to implement a policy and then wait 2 years to bring that policy to life. So I had a bunch of questions for Min about that. I guess one of the things that I was potentially contemplating, it could go one of 2 ways. You could approve the policy today and then do a subsequent, as you mentioned, or it could be a referral to say come back in July with the appropriate policy and procedures, because I agree there's so much documents and information here, and even it seems like at a high level admin has an idea already. What are your thoughts on sort of those 2 pathways that I'm kind of bringing forward to you in an action today? Yes, Funke. And then I'll ask Samuel after.
I think for us, it's very clear. All of the information that is needed and a comprehensive, extensive engagement has already been made. Coming back with a plan of action in July 2025 would be quite appropriate, and that's what we're suggesting today, back to City Council.
But would you prefer the policy, like it gets you there both ways, would you prefer the policy is still implemented today and then that comes back, rather than refer the entire thing back to come as one package?
No. The policy is implemented today.
Okay, yeah, no, so that's why I was
ago,
trying to get clarity.
and then come back in July
Yeah,
2025.
it's a strong policy, absolutely.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
absolutely. Okay. And then I just wanted to ask about in attachment, I don't know what number attachment, but the attachment 1, there's a table and it talks about the affordable housing strategy and this project with the health, multicultural health brokers on a newcomer housing project that's been ongoing since 2016, and we still don't have, if I'm correct, a newcomer housing project.
No, we don't.
What is holding that up? And will this policy or the procedure that would follow help with that? Or is it a separate issue?
It's separate, but it's also connected. So we've been working very closely with housing and homelessness, the folks over there, for the last 5 years to identify land. And when we quickly identified Carnarvon, which is a surplus school site, somehow the process shifted from creating a model housing for migrants in Edmonton to putting us in the same, I guess, bucket with all developers, which kind of put us in a sticky situation as a population-based housing provider, not necessarily a housing developer. So we quickly identified a policy gap within the city that got us in that situation. But we're still continuing to work with city admin staff in housing and homelessness to try to figure out a way out of this policy gap. We're also trying to work with, apply for the CMHC Solutions Lab to see how to restart the process at this point pretty much. But we've kind of moved from the motion that was passed in 2021 by City Council to this sticky situation where we're being judged as a housing developer, not a population.
Yeah, there's treating everybody equally isn't always equitable, right? And so if we're treating all housing developers the same, whether they're for-profit, not-for-profit, whatever skill set they have, there's a challenge there. I'll talk to administration about that. Okay, that helps answer my questions. I don't think I'd used all my 5 minutes yet. I think it was at 3 minutes when I'd asked that question. So I guess just in my last minute, Samuel, do you have anything you wanted to add to my line of questioning or comments?
Thank you, Councillor Rutherford. I think I concur absolutely with Funke that let's take the opportunity to, if we can, implement this policy today. It's well researched, it's robust. I think we have enough content there to move. And we also strategically enshrine important things in policy. So we'll take that opportunity today. And then I would also urge the agency, thank you, Funke, for bringing that to the surface, that I think 2026 is a long wait. We're dealing with a situation here that is happening now and that is current. And bringing this back, I think in 2026 would be a huge delay.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate your answers. And I will go to, there's lots of people on the board to ask you questions, both of you. Council, to Mayor Sohi, you are next.
Yeah, thank you so much. First of all, I want to take a moment to thank Sam and Funke, you for both of you for your leadership and the work that you have been doing in the community, supporting newcomers. I can, from my experience working with you and Sam and many other people, have seen firsthand the impact of your work. And I actually have benefited from the work of people like you when I settled here in Canada. So it's very important work. So I want to acknowledge that on behalf of my colleagues. My question to you, Funke, is around the intersection of this work and some of the other work that is being done in the city, particularly on this anti-racism file. Can you speak to that intersectionality, and is it interwoven into this as well?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mayor Sohi, for that. We can't. One of the great things I really loved about this policy was human-centered. It was people-centered, right? So when we see people as a whole, of course, we have to bring in the intersectional lens, of course. Yes, there's a lot of work being done by the city. We acknowledge that. And Sam Giroux mentioned some of that work, the anti-racism strategy, the anti-Black racism strategy. Yes, we recognize some of that work. One of my recommendations is asking that we have a dedicated leadership to see that work through. Wherever the 6 focus areas are great as well, but without dedicated leadership to bring that focused, intentional lens to this work, sometimes some of those intersections get lost in translation. And that is why we're bringing forward my second recommendation, that we have dedicated leadership to look at all of the various ways in which all of this work connects. And some of that work is already being done, but there's way much more work to do. As one of the fastest growing municipalities in Canada, and most of that number is coming from new migrants into our cities, into our city every day, we need dedicated leadership to help us look through this as well.
Yeah, no, thank you for stressing that second point, because one thing I'm worried about is that there's a lot of anti-immigrant sentiment growing unfortunately, even in Canada over the last number of years. And I don't want to say that other governments are not drawing back their support, but there's not less enthusiasm, right? I would say so, and that's where you see the local government at the ground level kind of stepping up and being their voice. Is that what you're getting at? That's part of the second recommendation?
Absolutely. And when times get difficult, and we've seen this over waves in history, things bubble up to the surface. Some of the migrant sentiments that are coming up, I really also think people are struggling, people are stressed, and not to make any excuses for people, but sometimes when we look at that intersections of what is happening globally in the world, we're able to see some of why those things bubble up. And that is why we need a space dedicated to helping all of us understand why we need migrants. A lot of folks, when I teach this, don't understand that, we need migrants for population. We need migrants for economic growth.
Yeah.
As a city, if migration to our city declines, that would impact our economics as well.
Yeah.
So those are some of the things that we need to look at, and how do we harness some of that as well. Again, when we have a dedicated space to bring out and talk about some of these issues, it's easier for us to make get ahead as well, and thrive as a city.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think we are also seeing this in the area of housing, in the area of healthcare, where people are conflating migration to lack of access to services, when it's actually not properly investing in those services, the root reason and root cause. Once again, thank you so much for you, both of you, for your leadership, and many others who were not able to join. I think our city would not be what it is today without the work that you have been doing. So thank you so much for that leadership. Good, I'm done.
Thank you, Mayor Sohi. Councillor Stevenson?
Yeah, thank you so much. My colleagues covered a number of great questions. I maybe just want to follow up with Samuel, just two quick questions. I appreciate your commentary around the need for introspection and really welcoming some of that internal work that happened with city staff. The report mentions that through some of the survey outreach work that was done, there was frustration with growing distrust at a municipal government. Do you have any insights in terms of what's driving that, or what you're hearing in terms of why there's maybe a growing sense that the municipal government in particular is not supporting newcomers?
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Councillor Stevenson, for that question. I think first of all, I think there's a proximity factor. I think that municipal government it's a community-based government. It's a government that's really close to the people, and I think that there are big expectations in terms of communities and the municipal government to be respondent to some of the issues and the challenges that are being faced. So I think as communities, yes, during COVID and post-COVID, our expectations from the municipal government are high in terms of being able to solve some of the challenges. Funke referenced things like the civic education that needs to happen in neighborhoods, right? As new immigrants come in, existing, residents, and that level of civic education to bring people together and to align people together. We're also seeing a need for, as we recognize that, Edmonton is growing, it's working. The rapid immigration strategy is working. We also then need to see commensurate supports that are associated to, one, on a quantitative level, the number of migrants who are coming in and what those are going to see. We are seeing this in housing, for instance. This is great. We're seeing the Mayor's Task Force, the City Council take leadership in the rapid affordable housing strategy and how you're moving on that. And I think it's those types of strategies that we need to see across the board with regards to issues of employment, with regards to issues of the encounters of peoples and civilizations that are happening in neighborhoods, and some of the social, economic, and cultural issues that have been referenced. So I think it's acknowledging that things are moving fast, that migrants are coming in fast, and also being quickly responding to some of those social, economic needs that have been highlighted.
Great. Okay, thank you so much. And I'm just wondering, in terms of some of the shared advocacy that we might need to do, I appreciate you highlighted some of the challenges that folks are facing these days. I know I've also heard, again, there's an increasing number of newcomers who are ending up experiencing homelessness. Does your organization keep some of those stats and data that could help us quantify the scale of this issue?
We have tried. I'm glad to see that one of the recommended pillars for this work is the data for action. Race-based data has been a challenge overall. The Africa Center has, and Funke and I believe over a year and a half, we opened this together. The Africa Center, about a year and a half, initiated an innovation research and data hub. And Funke and I are both data geeks. And we started off with collecting anecdotal data of our people to understand our people by who we are by population and trying to delineate some of the areas where we need help. So we have that anecdotal data that we've been able to collect. We're happy to share what we have. But however, you are right. We're starting to see a new phenomenon in the last 2 years where we're starting to see Black migrants on the streets. We have many calls from the shelters with folks in need of support. And this is a dynamic that's new and unique in a negative way for our communities. And we're trying to figure out what we do about that. And of course, we're speaking here to Black communities specifically, but also in general, we are seeing a lot of migrants who are coming here, migrating into homelessness. I think this is something that we need to deal with.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Stevenson. Councillor Salvador?
Yeah, thank you so much. Really appreciate both of the speakers taking the time to be with us today and for all of your ongoing work in this space. I had a similar question to the mayor, and maybe wanted to follow up with Samuel on this one, but thinking about a number of the existing strategies, community safety, well-being strategy, anti-racism strategy, anti-Black racism action plan, how do you envision today's policy update, I guess, complementing those existing bodies of work? I'm thinking about how those bodies of work will talk to one another.
I think, first of all, what excites me about today's update is that with key policies and strategies that are happening, like the anti-racism strategy, the community safety well-being strategies, at this point, these have been action plans and strategies. What I personally like about policy is that you legally enshrine things into a legislative framework that will, live in posterity. So we recognize that we don't have an anti-racism policy or a community safety well-being policy. So what I like about the update to policy C529 is that it enshrines a lot of the issues that have been identified in existing policies into a framework where it's current and it's moving forward. We are also starting to see, there's been a lot of progressive, as I said earlier, policies that have come, but there hasn't been intentionality around how those policies work together and jive with each other. So one of the things too that I liked in this current update is that work is going to be done to be synergistic around things like community safety well-being, the anti-racism strategy, state of immigration and settlement, and bringing cohesion and operational functionality in terms of how those come together. So I think that's also progressive in this particular report.
Yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate that, and agree. Yeah, I wanted to also get your perspective on just a plan for, or what you think the best way forward is for ongoing engagement and participation of migrant communities as the implementation of this policy rolls out, as the migrant action plan starts to take shape. What do you, yeah, I guess what structure do you think would be best for ongoing participation and engagement?
I think one is structural. So I think it's critically important within the city of Edmonton that the structures exist so that there's that interface between municipal government and the people. So I know that departments like community services, have particular branches that really are close to the people, and there's that mechanism where there's continued supports, continued relationship that are happening between communities and different sectors within city administration. So I think that those types of entities within administration need to continue to exist, and that way the engagement is not a one-time or specific to a policy or a strategy, but it's actually ongoing dialogue relationship that's built between city administration and communities. So that is the structural piece, I think, from the city, and that I think if we have those types of engagement, then that works. The other thing is, as I highlighted, the level of deep dive engagement that we saw with the update to policy C529, where it's quantitatively a lot of people were connected, and then qualitatively really looking at the diversity within the migrant community. And as I indicated, what I also really liked is that city reached out to its own folks, to its own staff. And staff is also echoing what communities are saying around some of these transformational needs. So I think it's those pillars of engagement that would be important.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Salvador. Councillor Tang?
Great. Thank you both for coming here and sharing your perspective. Maybe just following up on some of the questions earlier. So Funke, you've mentioned that we need that leadership. Can you just elaborate on that? Are you envisioning an internal committee? And then the fact that we have to consider these other policy pieces that are happening right now. Are we talking about a super committee that encompasses many things? Or I'm just wondering if you can talk a bit more about that.
Yes, certainly. When I talk about leadership, I'm looking at kind of a cross between what Sam just said. So it's embedded, within those who have the power to lead this, the implementation and action in this work, but also bringing in community, those who will be impacted. Very similar to the engagement that's already been done, but we need a dedicated department within admin or something that looks closely to the implementation of this work so it doesn't fall on the wayside like we've seen in so many other spaces already. So that's what we're looking at. We don't have the answer of what that could possibly look like right now, but dedicated leadership working with community to make sure that this doesn't fall to the wayside.
And then, one of the critique I often hear in the community is that, we have to be careful not to conflate anti-racism work with immigration and settlement. They intersect, absolutely, but they're not the same. Wondering if you have any reflection on that thread, as we develop policies that intersects with other policies. We tend to do that, right? And how do you, what are some secrets to kind of make sure that, we keep these threads distinct? Yeah, intersecting.
Yes, absolutely. But sometimes all of these policies, all of these actions impact the same people.
True.
So when we're trying to tear things apart, we're also trying to, tear people's lives, and think like they don't intersect, right? So for example, today we're talking about immigrant policy, but for us at MCHB, it's also impacted by our housing, work as well. So it's a space for us to recognize, yes, these are distinct, but yes, what is the whole, right? Working from the whole, yet with distinct pieces as well.
Yeah, and You both touched on how robust this public engagement has been, which I'm very happy to hear. Sam, you talked about the involvement of internal staff, and Funke, you talked about really centering on the experiences of those who are newly here. Any other aspect about the process that you think, we should know about that, hopefully we'll be able to incorporate them in other future policy engagement work? Maybe I'll start with Sam and I'll come back to you.
Thank you, Councillor Tang. Yes, so yes, you indicated, that we were really happy to see the city being introspective in this particular process. I think to administration, I would say this is great. We urge this as common practice, where the city is able to listen and take time to hear from your own colleague, maybe those in frontline, policy analysts and so forth. So I think that piece is an important piece. And with regards to the engagement that happened, when I looked through the document, I think one of the things that we did in this work was to engage communities directly, but also to engage through reputable community-based organizations that have trust, but that also, convene or are able to convene large numbers of people. I think in this case, partnership happened with, I think it's the multicultural health brokers were part of supporting to do this work. I know that there are groups who work with non-status folks.
So a diversity of community partners involved. I just want to give the last 30 seconds to Funke. Thank you.
Sure. Over to you, Funke.
No, thank you so much. And I think the work that was done in terms of engagement was, I have to give it to the folks who worked on this, was flawless. It was amazing. I would say continue on the path they started. Just making sure that we're using the folks always closest to the ground. Always the organizations, the communities closest to the ground to make sure that we don't lose sight of centering the voices that are most impacted.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tang. Councillor Rice?
Thank you, Chair Rutherford. Thank you, both of you, and come to Chamber and to discuss this important policy and for many Edmontonians who immigrate to this wonderful city. Thank you for your work. And so I have a few questions. First question, I would like to go to Samuel. My colleagues ask a lot of good questions. I'm not going to repeat their questions, but my question is about, we have different policy in place and from different orders of governments and implemented to support immigrants, migrants, or different settlement services. And from your perspective, what did you see this new policy we are discussing today and address the challenge not addressed by other policies?
So, Councillor Rice, thank you for your question. I think I got it, but I missed that last sentence where is the specific that you'd like me to address?
Specifically, and as you heard and from a presentation from city administration, immigrant piece is not our city's authority, but this policy definitely draws some challenges, and both of you talk about what is the top one challenge you believe this policy, if we implemented, will be addressed and it will support our communities?
Okay. I guess, first of all, it's context. So you're correct that jurisdictionally, immigration and settlement is a federal purview and a federal mandate. That said, I think I want to commend previous city councils, and I think people like Mayor Soy were part of a group that decided that although this is a federal jurisdiction and the federal government funds, things like Edmonton Local Immigration Partnership, the City of Edmonton administration and City Council has always taken leadership to say, with ELIP, the city matches, I believe, the federal government in terms of the dollars, as well as administrative support, so that Edmonton residents, Edmonton newcomers, there's intentionality to support that. So this is something that I want to commend, and also suggest that this historical approach is something that the city keep in terms of taking ownership over immigration and settlement, recognizing that.
I agree with you. I agree with you. So sorry, I have to look at the time. So I'm not talking about ownership. I'm talking about what's this specific policy will draw some challenges, and you think and other type of policies did not address.
Okay.
And do you have like top one challenge you think our city need to focus on, and it's missing in other policies?
Okay. I think that what I see is pretty comprehensive. I think I'm going to highlight just the neighborhood inclusion. I think when I look at what we struggled with in the past and what's highlighted in the new strategic approach is that the issue of neighborhood inclusion and that socialization is work that we need to do better at.
Wonderful. Thank you for that answer. So my next question go to Frankie. Thank you. Thank you for you to brought up many great points there. In your presentations, there are few things you mentioned really emphasize about housing, about food security, about social inclusion. And so it's a similar question. So also your recommendation about the implement this policy earlier than later. Can you explain a little bit more about how our city and could leverage this policy to address those health and food security, social inclusion, and also what's the difference between implement later and earlier?
Okay, thank you so very much for that question. One tangible thing that we could do as a city, or the city council could do to help in the space of housing, is once an organization like MCHB has dedicated land to build a model affordable housing for migrants who are coming into the city, that gives us leverage to be able to go to other orders of government or also private foundations to be able to give us the resources we need to be able to build that model housing. So one tangible thing that the city could do is help us get that land, which will give us leverage. And in terms of food security, all of this, yes, it's beyond the city council, but it also, this is the things that the city council is closest to the people. It helps with social inclusion. These are spaces where people come and live and thrive. Most migrants don't know the different orders of government. They come to us and they're asking us for healthcare, and I think the city should be able to do it for them. So for us, it's for when we think about well-being and a city where we want people to thrive, we have to be able to support even when we think that is beyond the realm of the city. How can the city support? And I want to thank the city council because they've always done that, and we expect that you'll continue to do that as well. So thank you.
Great, thank you. My time is out. I'm sorry. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you. Before we move on to our second rounds, we have a City Hall school here today. And so we're in committee right now, which means we're not in our regular council meeting. And so I'm the chair. But as the chair, you get discretion to do things. And because we have the mayor here, and I'm sure you'd much rather hear from the mayor than me, I am going to hand over. No, it's okay. I love it. We have the mayor, who is also a member of the committee, but just not the chair. He gets a break from chairing committee meetings unless it's executive or audit. I'll hand it over to you to introduce the school and talk to them.
Well, thank you, Councillor Rutherford. You're so generous ceding the chair to me. Really appreciate that. So I want to welcome some students who are visiting us from school. Their school is George H. Luck School and grade 6 class. They are here with their teacher, Jay Kalskog. Right? Did I get it right? Okay, and thank you so much for joining us. And your ward councillor is Councillor Cartmel. who, I don't know if Councillor Cardamom is joining us. Yeah, he's not part of this committee, so he might be busy with other council-related responsibilities. So thank you so much for joining us. Are you here for first of all, we want to give you a round of applause for joining us, or clap. Are you here for the morning only, for the afternoon, or for the whole day? Just for this morning, okay. And have you had your mock council yet? Not yet. Are you going to have a mock council? Yes. Okay, have you selected your mayor yet? Yes. Who is the mayor? Mayor Emily, right? Ooh, Mayor Emily, you want to come down to the podium? Come on, don't be shy, come down to the podium. Yeah. I'm going to ask you some tough questions. Yeah, the mic is on, right? And so, Mayor Emily, tell us, what are you going to be discussing at your
we are going to be discussing a school safety walk for our community.
Oh, school safety walk. Okay. So once you have your discussion and once you reach a decision, would you let us know what you decide?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you having fun chairing or being the mayor of the school, your class?
Yeah.
It's a pretty cool job. It's a lot of fun. Yes, Emily, you're gonna run for office when you turn 18? Well, maybe you still have to finish your school, right? Yeah. Oh, good, right on. Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And I'll turn the chair back to Councillor Rutherford.
So see, Emily, I gave you a lesson in all the mighty power you have and discretion you have as a chair. Just kidding. Okay, we will move on to our second round. We're still on speakers. So sorry about that, making you take your seat and then come back. Councillor, so I'm actually going to go to committee first, so we'll go to Mayor Sohi first.
Yeah, so just a couple of questions related to some of the focus areas on the for example, on the inclusive economy, right? So maybe this is to Sam or Funke, whoever wants to answer this. We did make some changes to our procurement policy around encouraging opportunities for, people from diverse backgrounds, businesses from diverse backgrounds to bid on city projects and services. Are you seeing some movement changes? How do you think that is going?
I think that is going well, but we could certainly make it a little bit more accessible to our communities.
Okay.
Again, yes, working with to get that information out.
Okay. And the other focus is service access and equity. And this is very important because when I look back at my journey moving here, access to services were integral for integration into the community, right? And affordability of those services was essential because I couldn't afford to pay for those services, right? So do you feel like one thing this council has done is actually really kept user fees affordable, for example, low-income bus pass, access to recreational facilities, creating opportunities for young people to participate in activities at very low cost. Do you think, how do you feel about that, first of all, and how do you think how those actions are helping?
Mayor Sohi, how I feel is most days irrelevant, but what I would say is how the families we support feel.
Yes, yeah, of course. Yeah. That's what I meant.
Very important.
Yeah.
No, I just like to make sometimes, so how the families feel is amazing. I think they welcome these changes that this council has done so far. I think it's been helpful to making integration into our city, like you said, much more easier, an easier process. So I say those have been welcome changes. Again, as the city grows to 2 million people, and we're rapidly growing, the test would be how we're able to accommodate more folks as they come here. And as they, and I think this policy speaks a lot to inclusion. So I think that will be the test as we grow.
And my last question is, do you see, like we have election coming up next year for municipal. Do you see opportunities for our administration, particularly our elections office, to engage with Africa Center, to engage with your organization or Mennonite Center or Catholic Social Service or other organizations that serve migrants, right? So to increase that awareness about the how to participate, how to volunteer, how to volunteer for to conducting elections, right? And the participation in the democratic process.
Yes, collaboration is key, and I would use today as an example. Yeah. So today we're speaking to this policy, amazing policy that would help shape the future of migrants in our city, but we're also speaking to it on a day where we have, or a week where we have two very high-level prominent conferences in the sector, and most of the folks who would have loved to come here to speak to the policy today are out of town. Mm-hmm. So again, that collaboration piece could be stronger and could be strengthened for sure.
Right. Okay, great. Okay. Thank you so much. Really appreciate this. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Tang?
Yeah, just a couple lingering questions. Maybe I'll start with you, Funke, and then Sam. Something I heard a lot from just the community, just with the rapid population growth than we've ever seen before, than we've ever anticipated before. There's a lot of services that are being kind of taken up rapidly than people could sign up for, like language classes, which then becomes a barrier to education, to employment, all that kind of stuff. Are you seeing that in the community?
Absolutely, yes, for sure. We're seeing that, and there's long wait lists. And like you said, if folks don't have the language, then settlement and integration even becomes a little bit more challenging. So what we'd like to see, I know that is beyond the scope of this city council, but some advocacy from the city council, which you've always done, would be helpful in that sense as well. Because we hear it, we're like, oh, how come City Hall doesn't help us get language? And we have to let them know, that is not the purview of the city council. But advocacy for sure will be very welcome from you.
And I imagine with the action plan kind of as the next step, that will be part of the consideration. Yes. Sam, do you have anything you want to add?
I'll just concur what Funke said. I think definitely at the ELIP community collaboration tables, we are hearing, you're right, Councillor Tang, that things like lack of access or really long wait lists to language classes, link classes, ESL classes is a big hindrance in terms of the integration timelines.
Yeah, and even though, those are not within our jurisdiction, but certainly wanting to see people be set up for success, I think is very much part of, our role. Speaking of ELIP, again, I'll start with Funke and then Sam. I'm curious about what you see as a good, like a community accountability mechanism with something like this. I imagine annual report back might be a helpful way to kind of continuously engage the community. Do you think ELIP or Annual State of Immigration and Settlement could be that forum where that internal leadership working with community can kind of really share back on some of these progress? I'm just trying to think about that accountability back to the families you're serving, right? The people who are arriving, and the service providers, of course.
Yes, ELIP has been a great vehicle over the last 10 years, but we're here now, and it's a great time to sort of like reevaluate what that leadership has been and what it could be going forward based on some of the 6 focus areas that have been identified at this point. So just a reimagining, a reevaluation of what this could look like, with ELIP on the table would be welcomed as well.
Yeah. Any thoughts on the annual state of immigration settlement?
Yes, but make it more dynamic.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you for the feedback. Yeah. Sam, do you have anything?
Yeah, similarly, I think there's huge potential with state of immigration and settlement as a policy driver in terms of current and emerging, its primary research, its engagement, and policy recommendations coming out of that. And I agree with Funke, and I think the community is in that field as well, that ELIP is due for a refresh and a bit of a new visioning around how it can functionally support migrants. So I think both of those are in scope.
Well, that's I think is a great opportunity for some of those next steps. Thank you both so much for coming here today. That is all.
Thank you, Councillor Tang. Councillor Rice?
Thank you. I really appreciate this conversation. This is actually demonstrate our city is collaboratively working with different orders of government to support our newcomers, to support the immigrants. So I do reflect my journey as a first generation immigrant to our city over 16 years ago, without government services, community services, like both of you have been doing great community services to support many community members in our city. So I think that great work is already there, and I really appreciate you are here to answer some questions. So I do have the question. I like your point, Samuel. And so specifically talk about the neighborhoods inclusion. So I have one question related to this. So Africa Center did lots of great work in the past years, and you engaged community really much and bring people together. And because the location is in north side, and then lots of engagement happened in your center. Is there any plan given the population growth our city and in the south side? And is there any plan and looking forward for that?
Thank you, Councillor Rice. Absolutely. I think your question hits the mark. Traditionally, migrants have settled in neighborhoods where rent is affordable, and those maybe have traditionally been in the north side. I think with the rapid immigration policy, particularly the highly skilled cohort is coming in, and we're seeing more affluent migrants and highly skilled migrants start to come. And we're starting to see huge numbers of migrants settle in the South. I think this is part of what Funke referenced earlier. So the need for service is not just in traditional neighborhoods where organizations like the Africa Center have provided services, but we've had calls from residents, immigrants who are in the South, in places like Chewiliga, Ellerslie, and Windermere, who are asking for services in those neighborhoods. So I think this is becoming a citywide issue around neighborhood inclusion.
Okay, thank you for that answer. So my next question, and to both of you, and then you can comment on, and in terms of the services we provided and to migrants. Specifically, and the language barrier, that's one. And another important sense, I notice lots of newcomers come to our city. They start their small business and home business. And is there anything from your perspective you look at our city could provide that type of services to really make sure this small business and the local business and the home business and actually owned by those newcomers could get some support? What that support looks like to you? How do you like to see that type of support from our city and in place, and to provide that access, resources, and to those business owners?
Funke, are you okay for me to take this one first?
Sure, go ahead, sir.
Mm-hmm. I think there's a couple of layers to this, Councillor Rice. I think the aspect of support with regards to financial literacy is important for new and emerging businesses. How business works here within a funding and sort of policy and operational regime is very different to many places, as you know, in the global South. So I think one of the challenges that many businesses, newcomer businesses face is financial literacy and understanding processes and systems. I think that's one. The availability of micro grants for new and emerging businesses is something that I think will be critically important. I'm aware that last year the city initiated a fund, and I'm not sure if it was a one-time, I believe it was called the EDGE Fund. So those types of funds, I think, are important at municipal levels in terms of being able to catalyze small businesses within communities to thrive. And I would urge things like the EDGE Fund to be an annual sort of grant that's available for businesses. Thank you.
That's great. And then I believe our H fund still have $5 million annually. I will confirm that information with city administration as well. But thank you for that feedback. Any other comments from Funke?
Sure. I will just quickly say that absolutely, economic prosperity. Every new migrant comes here looking for prosperity. They are looking to do well. So always assuming that everyone wants to go into employment is something that it's an opportunity for the city right now to look into entrepreneurship and how we can scale up small businesses as well. It's one thing I know the community I'm most familiar with are very concerned about right now. The Nigerian community is like, how do we build up our small businesses in Edmonton? And as soon as people have small businesses, they have deep roots, they're here to stay. So it's an opportunity I really encourage City Council to look into, and City Admin as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And just a friendly reminder to colleagues to, if you have questions, don't ask a question at the 10 seconds left. Give ample time for either administration or the public to answer those questions in your timeline. We're at committee, so there's no limit to rounds that you can do, but then it's equitable for everyone. I think that's it for questions of the public speakers. Thank you so much for being here today. It was a robust and rich conversation. And thank you to those that joined online as well. And now we will go to questions of administration. And I'm gonna, again, because I selected this item, I'm gonna start. I'm sure you have an indicator. I have two sort of different streams. One is what is holding up the housing project in Carnarvon? And that's been in the works since 2015. We're literally 10 years later. And then the second line of questioning is around some of the process and policy pieces, because as somebody that's written social policy before, typically you do a policy complemented with a procedural document that would indicate who in the administration is responsible, who's the owner of it, how are we going to integrate and implement this policy and bring this policy to life through the organization. And an example, even within the city of Edmonton, was the public engagement policy. That came with a procedural document. So I guess I'm confused and would like understanding from administration as to why we have a policy here that we're bringing. It's a great policy, to be clear, without a procedural document to accompany it, and an action plan that's going to take 2 years to come back to council with maybe some ideas of what we're going to do.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Rutherford. As you can imagine, administration is as eager to get this work moving and underway as I think our community is. As to the administrative document, my understanding is that generally the administrative procedures are sort of that optional piece that gets connected in, and that is generally within the purview of administration. So we bring the policy forward to council because we require council's direction to be able to implement that. The intention with bringing the Migrant Action Plan forward to you in terms of what does that involve, what is that going to look like, how are we going to implement the Migrant Action Plan is intended as that procedural implementation, but what we're talking about is a very complex and a very big opportunity here. And so this, what administration is recommending putting forward isn't so much a standard operating procedure as a really integrated and deeply connected conversation with the rest of the city and with community in terms of all of the things that can be done, how do we prioritize, how do we put those into place. And so the limited information that we have for you here today in terms of what does that look like is making sure that we are all on the same page in terms of that commitment and that we can do that integrated work with the rest of the city to get moving in some really more complex ways than the city has been before.
Yeah, so first of all, I completely understand what a procedure is in terms of an admin document. Those have come in the past as part of council reports, but I'm talking more about the process. Because again, we're gonna, if this gets approved to go from committee to council for approval of this policy, we will have a policy in place that, in my mind, doesn't have, as you mentioned, a procedural document for 2 years. And that from a process, from a policy, social policy making process perspective is concerning to me. So I'm trying to just make myself comfortable with that.
Yeah, we've had conversations about what that robust strategy, I call it strategically whole, looks like to get to on this file. So we do see this as one of the anchor policies and under CSWB, the pillar for safe and inclusive spaces. And within that, the procedure looks like putting together a robust needs assessment that includes the information that we're getting from State of Immigration and Settlement reports, from data, and from other sources, similar to the housing needs assessment that we have that Council would be familiar with. From there, building upon that within and across the department on the corporate plan. So what is that corporate plan for coming forward? What is our appropriate jurisdiction? How are we prioritizing, and how does that go into place? While working with the community on the community plan, which may be integrated with ELIP. As we know, we're waiting on the federal government. We've been having some really positive conversations and hope to have some good news there soon as to how we'll be coordinating with the community on putting theirs forward, in addition to intergovernmental considerations, in addition to investment plans, in addition to our communication strategy and our engagement approach. So administration is very much intending a very robust, with the support of Council today, a very robust implementation. So it's a question of when those touch points are that we come back to Council, but that work is and will be starting right away and will be ongoing over the years to come.
So who is the ultimate owner? Once this policy is in place then, who is responsible? What area of the organization? Is it Deputy City Manager Flamen? Is it?
Social development is the lead on this, and we've already had coordinated conversations with our integrated leadership team across the city, knowing that this is coming forward, that we'll be coming back to them for implementation, but that social development will be leading that work.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Stevenson?
Yeah, thank you so much. Really appreciate this work and the comprehensive report that was shared with us. I have a very basic question, and I'm just interested in sort of how this gets articulated. It goes to the question of ownership, who's sort of responsible and holds this document. I feel like in some of our other strategies, we have a really clear sense of our role as a city. So there was the one slide about avenues for supporting migrants. There was, services and supports, partnership, advocacy. But I guess I'm still unclear, is the City of Edmonton leading this work for our community? Are we convening leaders of that work? Are we supporting? I don't know if that distilled down for me.
Sure. Thanks for the question. And the answer, I think, isn't as straightforward in a space such as this. So this is one of those spaces where all orders of government have a role in immigration and settlement. So we've had extensive conversations. Is it the city's role to be doing settlement services? Absolutely not. That said, we want to make sure that the provincial government and the federal government really knows what immigration and what settlement looks like in Edmonton. What is that unique context? And to be doing that, we need to work really closely with those who are working on the ground, with those who are experiencing immigration, to be able to tell Edmonton's story so that we can ensure that the policies and the investments that are being made from other orders of government are investments that work for Edmonton. As well, immigrants are settling and migrants are settling here in Edmonton, and they experience everything from transit to permits, etc. And so we have a large role in making sure that their experience every day on the ground as they interact with Edmonton is a positive one and one where they want to settle and thrive.
Yeah, and I think that's a good distinction in terms of that dual role. And so maybe just to really drill down, because I think that telling of the story, capturing the context, that's a really important and I think unique role that the city can play. So, are we saying that we are responsible for telling that story?
I think we have a responsibility in working with our partners, as we have in the development of this policy that you see before you today, working with our partners, working with individuals in the community to understand that story and to be one of the voices and to amplify the voices that are being heard at different levels. So are we the only voice? Absolutely not. But can we be a strong and vibrant partner in having that conversation? Absolutely. We're still in the, as I noted, the last moments of conversation with the federal government in terms of what ELIP looks like going forward. I think we certainly see a role for the City of Edmonton in supporting ELIP and moving that forward. So we'll see what that looks like, and that will determine our next number of years in that space.
Okay, great. Again, the report and work done today, I think, is really comprehensive and really excellent. I don't want to detract from that at all. But one thing I noticed was that it is very focused on newcomer and migrant serving organizations and individuals. And I was wondering about that lens of trying to sort of foster and invite all Edmontonians to take part in being part of the solution of welcoming new folks to our community. So specifically, in phase 2, I think there's planned engagement. I'm just wondering how we broaden that out to understand, what barriers do Edmonton, like old comers, I guess, face in connecting with newcomers. Organizations like EFCL, even BIAs, speaking to the economic development side of it, supporting businesses. How do we bring in more of those voices and ensure that, we can do, the community's doors need to be open, I think, as well. And so how do we enhance this work with some of that?
Thanks for the question. And as you may know, the Neighbourhood Services has recently come over to social development.
Right.
So we have already been having some of those early conversations, really look forward to the integration that we can do together going forward. But we will take note of that and ensure that that's considered in our engagement strategy.
Perfect. Really appreciate that. I think, I think some great opportunities for broad engagement and then some of those key organizations as well. But yeah, that is an exciting opportunity with that shift. Also, just, one thing that made me nervous was just talking about some of the newcomer spaces. Just wanted to be really clear, and I think it is referenced in the report, but just that there is a huge opportunity to maybe make use of some of our existing facilities, so community leagues, rec centers. Is that still the intent? Just, wanting to be realistic and mindful about future facilities and what the opportunities might be.
Sorry, we were just smiling across because we've been having some recent conversations about this. But as we shared, there's a lot of intersecting work here. One of the conversations that we've been having a lot in social development is around social infrastructure. And what does social infrastructure look like, not only from the city infrastructure that we have, but also how can we leverage the community infrastructure and convene folks to look into some of these spaces. So your brain's in the same place as ours.
And I realized I just went over a bit, so apologies. Thank you. No, that was me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Salvador.
Yeah, thank you so much. Really appreciate all the work that went into this, and well-deserved kudos from our speakers today. It sounds like this has been a really excellent process and rich opportunity for dialogue and conversation. So maybe just to dig in a little bit to some of the direct comments we heard from speakers around the need for dedicated leadership to sort of steward and carry this work. Revising the policy is just the first step. Having that dedicated leadership seems pretty critical. So I wanted to just give you an opportunity to directly respond to some of the comments we were hearing from speakers.
Sure, I can speak to the leadership in particular. So as I noted before, social development is the lead for this across the city, but this will take many hands and many different teams, units, sections to make this really come to life. But social development will be where that sits. We've taken a slightly different approach to how we work in social development over the last year. And what we've ensured is that we don't just have a person necessarily that, is the holder of all things migrant inclusion policy, because that limits, quite frankly, what we can do and what we can do together. So we take a more integrated approach where we have stood up a research and data team, and that research and data team does robust and in-depth support of a number of our different files, and this will be one of them, in addition to community navigation, social planning, and other functions. So it sits with social development. We have a group that is going to be working across those many functions, but we'll be bringing the organization together.
Okay, fantastic. That's really good to hear. And one of the other questions I wanted ask a little bit about, and I see it's included in the report, but I wanted to ask for a little bit more elaboration, just given how excellent the process has been so far in sort of centering the voices and expertise of newcomers. How do we keep that going? How do we continue building that strong dialogue, and how do we ensure that we have the right structural mechanisms in place to facilitate that engagement on an ongoing basis?
Thanks. That's one of those complex pieces that we're having conversations with community about and need to sort out moving forward. It's, as we noted, not just in this immigration space, but we're having a lot of conversations as well about anti-racism that is distinct, but certainly intersecting with this work. So we have opportunities through ELIP, through State of Immigration and Settlement Report, and through our existing relationships. So we need to articulate as we are fleshing out that plan of community plan, corporate plan, needs assessment, intergovernmental strategy, working with community to understand how do they see themselves being involved and how do we do that in a way that is efficient and effective for them and their time and respects their knowledge and expertise.
Okay, thank you. And thinking a little bit about the implementation and kind of operationalization of this work, I appreciated the answer around sort of a dedicated plan for leadership and sort of the distributed nature of how this work will be held. I'm also just thinking about resourcing from a funding perspective as well. As we do move forward into the Migrant Action Plan, do you anticipate that there would be some resourcing needs? How do we ensure that this work is well supported?
It's a great question, and I wouldn't say there will never be a dollar required for the Migrant Inclusion Plan, but this really is a journey, and this is changing how the city works. So there's a number of different ways that we can approach this question. So one is that, as I said, social development this is the work that we do, and this is the work that all of us should be doing. So there are going to be a lot of instances where we have things that we should be doing as a city, and it's not necessarily about doing something new as doing what we already do differently. So that's changing the conversation of what we do and changing the investments that we're already making to ensure that they support the citizens that we have in our city and that we'll be welcoming in the future. Secondly, part of it is about ensuring that the investments that are made by other orders of government and sometimes by the private sector actually work here in Edmonton. And so that's leveraging other orders of government, leveraging the private sector, and other philanthropic funds to make sure that we are working here in Edmonton today. Lastly, we do have CSWB, which we've had some conversations about. If there are additional funds that are needed over and above the investments that we already make, that we would make differently, and other government orders where they could be making investments, then we may look to leverage that fund. And of course, if there were sort of exceptional funds that were required in the future as we build out the corporate plan, the community plan, et cetera, we would bring those forward in a further budget conversation.
Excellent. Thank you so much for the comprehensive answer.
Thank you. Mayor Sohi?
Yeah, thank you so much. So, yeah, I absolutely understand that immigration is a federal and provincial jurisdiction, but when people move to our city, they are Edmontonians like every other Edmontonian, and access to services that we provide is our responsibility, right? So everything that we do, from community safety, well-being, to public transit, to recreational facilities, green spaces, like we touch people's life every day, municipalities, right? So that's where you see, like, I think that's the primary role of municipality, and we've got to want to make sure that equitable access is provided. So how are we doing on that? Like, I know this is great work. Please do understand I deeply appreciate this, right? So can you touch a bit on that? How are we doing on making sure that services are equitably accessible to newcomers?
Sure. So City Policy C606 was approved in City Council on September 18th, 2018. That policy ensures that all residents, regardless of their immigration or citizenship status, can access municipal services without fear or discrimination of deportation. And so that specifically addresses services like transit, recreation passes, library cards, and ensuring that those are accessible to all. We also work really closely with our not-for-profit partners to ensure that where supports are needed, that they have the ability to make those connections, in some cases discounted services as well. So we work with the community to ensure that that's in place.
Great, great.
And
I'm sorry.
if I can just augment that, Council just received a memo from me last week that just talks a little bit about our Community Recreation and Culture Branch Research Project that is also informing our equity work, just to do all of that outreach and that research to ensure that the services we're providing, particularly in our rec centers, are meeting the emerging needs of Edmontonians in lieu of the larger immigration that's happening.
Yeah, and the affordability of services is that part of equity lens as well, right? Because not everyone in Edmonton has the same amount of resources to access services and programs that we offer.
Absolutely.
Right. Can you also speak to kind of the convening and advocacy role that city can play and has been playing on, along with being a service provider?
Absolutely. You're probably tired of hearing from me, so I will let Chelsea Horlak take this one, our Director in Safe and Healthy Communities.
Thank you, Stacey. Thank you, Mayor Sohi. So as you're aware, the city has been playing a convening role for quite a long time with the newcomer serving sector and many of our partners through ELIP, through the State of Immigration and Settlement reports. And we will continue to do that and really understand where there is a strong role for us and what the community needs for us to play in convening. I would suggest that through that role that we have played, it feeds into the needs assessment and our understanding of current state, current priorities, current areas that we as a city need to consider planning with other orders of government, areas that we can be advocating. We heard from our speakers a little bit today about some of the things, the trends, the concerns that they're hearing, ways that we may want to consider looking at our own intergovernmental approaches, where there's certain things that aren't necessarily within the purview of our jurisdiction or roles or responsibility, but we can help support those conversations for needed investments, increase in services, all of those things.
Okay. Thank you for that. I want to ask also on a kind of, I think, an opportunity that's on the way, which is next year's municipal election. Is there opportunity for Edmonton elections and municipal affairs and immigrant serving organizations to kind of work together on, increasing the participation and, encouraging people to volunteer for conducting elections? Because you need volunteers. We rely quite a bit on volunteers to. And also with changes on Bill 20, where we would need more people to actually hand count votes, right? So good way to engage Edmontonians, newcomers. Any opportunities around that?
Yeah, Mayor Sohi, it's Aileen Giesrick, the returning officer for Edmonton elections. If it's okay if I jump in, we started with a broader engagement approach to attracting a variety of potential residents to work in the 2021 election. We actually had a targeted engagement through a few different stakeholders and partners, and we did have a number of our workers who were not eligible to vote in the election, but we were really fortunate that they were able to take paid employment through advance voting and on election day. And we'll be looking to continue that opportunity for 2025. We'll also be doing some additional outreach, and we're working with our partners in public engagement as well as external relations to look at further opportunities.
Great. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Mayor Sohi. Councillor Tang.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much. I feel like the conversation this time around is so different from when the last annual report came, and I really appreciate all the work that's gone in. I think it's very thoughtful and intentional and sequenced and, in my opinion, rigorous. So on that sequence, I just want to, I guess, better understand. We need an overarching aspirational policy. If approved, this is it. And then that will set forward all the developing the action plan, which will require engagement, validation, further engagement, needs assessment, also engagement. Am I understanding that right? You're embedding that every step.
You sure are.
Without exhausting people.
That's the goal.
That's the goal, okay. And then there is a piece about the investment plan. Is that timed for the next 4-year budget cycle then? Or do you think that will, because you're talking about coming back in 2026, is that for that conversation?
That would be ideal. We need to understand some of the funding envelopes that we may have at hand, but we will be developing that approach. For example, FCSS comes up for its renewal, and so we'll be having conversations about what are the needs under the migrant plan to inform FCSS. But then we'll want to roll that up into a plan. Yeah.
And then some of the engagement planning would start next year, even if you're anticipating coming back in 2026, right?
Yeah, we'll be needing to do all of that engagement over the intervening time between now and when that comes back, which is part of the reason why we have space to not just sit in our offices and write something that we can deliver to council, but that is an iterative conversation with community about what we bring forward.
And then just on the comment earlier from a speaker around 2025 for sort of a progress update, is that doable?
That could be considered.
Okay. Just even like progress to date and like what the conversation has been like, I think would be a good check-in. And then also some of the comments around reimagining, refreshing the ELIP opportunity. I recognize you just mentioned, Stacey, that you're talking to the federal government right now. Is that on the table? And what actually kind of excites me about that is that we're not talking about new things. We're actually talking about improving upon existing structures and making it more suitable to the time that we're in.
That's right. So just for clarification on the questions, just because I was answering something here, asking what is in the ELIP?
The comment around refreshing and reimagining structures like ELIP within the settlement sector, and I hope that conversation feeds into this action planning.
Absolutely, and what we have proposed to the federal government certainly does look at the previous ELIP, but builds upon that in terms of diving further into research and the possible establishment of a research hub, for example, some shared secretariat work, as well as expanding ELIP scope to address some of that neighborhood inclusion that we talked about today.
Okay, that's great. And then, are we still doing the State of Immigration and Settlement reports then? That was motion-driven, it's annual. I don't know what happened to the one last year or this year.
So we are still in conversations about what year 4 might look like, and it would be my hope that we could integrate that with the needs assessment so that we use that as the robust process by which we can inform our policy.
Okay, that's great. On the suggestion around kind of the centralized leadership, cross-departmental, what is our current structure for something like anti-racism? Are we doing that? Because that also affects. And I understand, anti-racism is very high up out of the city manager's office. Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, I think perhaps the best way to answer that question is, when we look at anti-racism, we're looking at systemic changes across all of our areas of work. So each of the departments are taking on the work that applies to their departments and their lines of business. And what we provide through the high-level office is a convening function and a challenge and enable function where we can monitor, track, and help fill gaps where needed.
And then so when you hear a suggestion like that, do you feel it would just complement existing structure and existing work?
I think it's a good question. There's lots of complementarity between the work that goes on, and there's lots of coordination that already goes on. And I think vis-a-vis the immigration work in particular, I would leave that to the folks who know a little bit more about that than I do.
Yeah, I guess I'm just worried about perhaps because it's resource intensive, lots of convening, lots of stakeholder engagement, right? Lots of departmental engagement. I think I worry about sort of the layering of that versus reimagining, refreshing. But I'm out of time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Tang. You can always come back for another round. Councillor Rice.
Thank you very much, and thank you, City Administration. I really appreciate the definition of our position and also the work what have been done and so far. So there's lots of great work and to reflect how our city to support the newcomers, all the migrant actions as well. So my first question, and based on the presentation and our city's population as of May 11th, 2021, and 32.5% of Edmontonians' population are immigrants. So that is actually a very big percentage. So I agree with Councillor Stevenson's point. So yes, we have services, and those services provided to all the Edmontonians, including our immigrants. And so during our policy, is there any specific consideration to look at the policy, different services we provided, and really could make that community connection to not only focus on immigrants and also to focus on entire community as a whole. And we work together, we connect each other, we support each other. So I just want to get a sense from you from that piece.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Rice. That's a great point, and that's why you see here conversations about a corporate plan, and that's the things that the services and programs that are provided by the city, but also that community plan and working with community to understand how through neighborhood inclusion, through other initiatives, we can ensure that all Edmontonians have a role in embracing and supporting our neighbours.
And Councillor Rice, this is Jennifer. If I can also augment that to Councillor Tang's earlier question on governance, community safety and well-being has created an incredibly robust governance across the corporation that is also another vehicle through which we can ensure that there aren't duplications and layers of things and that we are so connected. Our muscle memory on this now is getting very strong.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for that work. And then in terms of the earlier question from Mayor, so he talked about city administration reach out to the Africa Center or Africa community organizations in terms of 2025 election. So my question is, and so in our city, and it's my understanding, we have over 70 ethnic communities, and even like for example, Chinese community, which I am from. It's my understanding they have actually registered over 235 organizations, maybe active, not as many as that, but register even. That means for those over 70 ethnic communities, there's so many community organizations. How we can ensure all those organizations has the same access or same connection or same level communication with the city administration?
Thank you for the question, and it's quite frankly a difficult one to answer. We are now a city of a million individuals, a million people, and growing every day, and a number of migrants. So part of how we help to address that is leveraging different groups that bring together many other groups and sort of those hubs of engagement and those hubs of connection. So sometimes we work through there. In other ways, we can do surveys, for example, when the city surveys our Edmontonians to get their feedback. But there are a number of modalities which we utilize throughout policy development or throughout implementation to ensure that we are connecting with as many of our Edmontonians and as many of our neighbors as possible.
So if that's the case, I would like to know some information or data, and for the participate 239 individuals for the survey, is there any breakdown and data to demonstrate which from like the Africa Center, which from like Assist, or which from different organizations, from different ethnic groups? So that would be help us to understand the engagement and process and reflect to the equally and to all the different communities. So is that data available or not available?
We'd be happy to follow up after the council or after the committee meeting today with some of that information.
That's wonderful. So my last quick question for the AG fund, is it still ongoing or right now already and is one time?
My apologies, for which fund?
AG fund. H-Fund, and then I believe I was in the first time announcement, and for this H-Fund to support small business and business startup, and then is that fund? So I can follow up with finance. My time is out. Thank you. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Rice. Yeah, I'm going to take another round here. So I guess just picking up on my last line of questioning and some of the questions from before, I think the piece that I'm missing, and I understand at a high level that work will happen in the next 2 years, but I don't think necessarily community or us has a good understanding of what that is, and I think that's the piece that I'm missing. Like when I think about, like I'll give an example. When I think about those 6 pillars, I would have liked to have seen, even without, because I see the action plan, even if it's a corporate action plan, is still potentially future-focused in additional resources, but I see policy and how do we integrate that policy work happening over the next 2 years. So, for example, under Pillar 1 around economic development, something as simple as understanding that social planning will work with the economic development department to look for development opportunities specific with migrant communities within existing resources. Like that kind of stuff is what I'm missing. Like in all of those pillars, I don't see who is holding and what they are doing to start to create those waves internally. I see a lot of external engagement and external work, but that's where I'm struggling in this process piece. So it feels like it's happening, and I think there is a lot, but it's that myself, and I think in the sense of the community, there's a feeling that they don't understand all of that, that they don't see the long work, the behind the scenes work.
Yeah, it's a fair comment, and part of that process, again, because this is so expansive and this is really complex and long-term work, part of it is making sure that we have a shared understanding with community and we have a shared understanding with council on what our position here is as the City of Edmonton and where we are philosophically grounded so that we can go into those implemented conversations. So we can certainly include, I think, touch base with council as we progress is a really, really great idea, and would be happy to fold that into that update.
But do we already have that agreement on the shared understanding with community?
I think that is the conversation today.
Okay, because I was like, if we implement a policy and then you have less mobility to actually shift with community.
No, I think we have the shared understanding with community, and now is our conversation with council to solidify that so that we can move forward with that work.
And I'm more worried about internally, how do we make sure that the areas, so I think about like we can talk about the housing project, right? That's been going on for years and years. I've recently received an email talking about how it's at risk. This project is at risk. We're treating this group as we would any housing developer, including housing development fees, including the equity they need to put down to leverage for the asset. But to me, this policy would say, how do we take special consideration for and treat groups that are working to support newcomers differently? So if this policy is approved, how will this trickle down to housing in this project as an example?
And that's the conversation that we need to have.
Okay. One of the speakers today said one of the things that would help them the most in moving this project along. And I'm asking, this is obviously in Ward and Olnick, the surplus school site that is actually having the land. So what's stopping them right now from having the land?
Sure. So as you know, housing development is difficult. Yeah. It's complicated.
Yeah.
And administration has been working with MCHB over a number of years to work through some of what are those next steps that one requires to not only get that development in place, but make sure that that's a successful development on into the future. So that includes conversations around governance structure options, equity and guarantor requirements that we talked about. It's not just about the city, but how they position well financially with other sources of funding as well. Project team development, the land options and zoning implications, environmental and operational considerations, pro forma development, and the grants and funding support that's required. So those discussions have also included sharing insights on timelines and considerations for funding cycles between different orders of government, negotiating sales and funding agreements, which can take, as we know, months, integration of tendering, construction, occupancy processes, et cetera. So I wouldn't say that there is not progress happening on this. I would say that this is quite a journey to go from an organization that does other sorts of services into the housing development space. So I appreciate the eagerness, and I think we are all eager to see more housing in place.
Well, I think the question I have as a governor is, we're in a housing and houselessness emergency. We start saying here, newcomers are important. How do we make sure we're putting our actions and our getting out of the way to make that happen? Okay, sorry, Mayor Sohi.
No, I just want to follow up on that. You identified numerous things that go into developing a housing project, and there's a lot of barriers in this process as well, right? So I think you're working on removing those barriers. But my biggest worry is the lost opportunity because we are in the process of seeking interest for those surplus school sites, right? And this surplus school site at the Caernarvon site that community is looking at is part of that process, which I want to know what is required from committee and council to ensure that that opportunity is not lost, because if community loses that site, then this project will be further delayed, maybe a few years, right? Longer, maybe, or may die, right? So maybe somebody from the housing action team on the line, like what is required to ensure, to give some certainty to the community that this site is they can count on this site.
So I think we need to work with community on which site might be appropriate at the point at which they are ready for the development, and that needs to be an ongoing conversation. So appreciate that we do have surplus school sites here. Those are a really wonderful opportunity, and certainly we're looking forward to moving those very quickly, given the timelines that we have on half. But we are continuing to have conversations. Those are not the only sites that we have in the city as well. And
So
we
are
need to
there
keep
other potential sites for this project?
I think we need to have those conversations about how that project continues to develop and which the most appropriate sites are for what they are looking to develop and the timelines in which they are looking to develop them.
Can you undertake those conversations in a rapid way that when the decision comes to council for allocation or on those current surplus schools that you're working on, right? That we have a good understanding that if this particular site is not available, what other sites are available? Because I think it'll be very disappointing for all of us if this opportunity that community has been working on for a number of years is lost.
Yeah, and I know that the Multicultural Health Brokers already has a meeting in place with our team, if not next week, maybe the week after. I'd have to look at my calendars here, but to have those continued conversations.
Okay, so what I will be looking for then when the surplus school site decision comes to committee, I think it's come to executive or council, and ultimately I would want to have a better understanding or some assurance that if Caernarvon site is allocated for some other housing project, that there's ability for the MCHB to be having opportunity for other either surplus school site or city-owned land, because that's what we heard from the community, that if you give us land, they can leverage that for other sources, but also working with you, right? So,
yes, of course.
Would you be able to give some insight at that time? Because I would hate to make a decision allocating this land to some other project if I feel that this project will die.
Of course, appreciate that.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you for appreciate that.
Thank you, Mayor Sohi. Councillor Tang?
Yeah, thank you for Jen. Thank you for that follow up on the governance piece. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page, that we have a lot of policy work on the go. There's a lot of oversight structures. They all look different for different things, and we need a bit of a consolidation, because I think otherwise it's not a good effective use of resources, right?
And one of the things that our city manager has put into place, even when he was interim, was our integrated leadership action team, which is all of executive leadership as well as all branch managers. And we're meeting with the frequency, and we're driving these conversations around these larger corporate pieces. Just last month, Stacey presented this work in advance of coming to council to ensure that we all have a stake in this. And at that time, city manager said, this is not just a social development thing to do. Right. It is a social development thing to lead, but all of us have a role to play in its success, and that was heard loud and clear by the entire extended leadership team. And if I could just take one moment and just acknowledge all the great work that's happening, even the front line. Like, I'm talking about leadership, but percolating all the way through front line. You might remember our language identifiers program, of which you, Mayor Sohi, and Councillor Rice were willing to share your ability to speak another language other than English. And to date, we have over 66 different languages being represented across the corporation, with 485 frontline staff wearing those proudly, interacting with community and providing services in different languages.
Thank you for that update, and I'm really glad to hear more about the integrated action plan. So are you saying there's a action plan committee focused around this particular issue that overlaps with other issues?
It is. We are a matrix organization. We understand to get this work done, it isn't just simply linear and following a line of who reports into who. And so it's ideas around climate, around Indigenous framework, around reconciliation that are cross-cutting across the organization. These are the things that we're focusing on as an extended leadership team.
Excellent. And then just my last kind of thinking around operationalizing a policy like this. Say everything kind of goes through, we have an action plan, there's an investment plan. Presumably that kind of leads into potentially some grants that we might support. But you heard about some of the concerns around how might this policy integrate well with housing. I hear regularly from community groups who want to build schools and run into some challenges around planning and development. So I can see interconnection there with local economy. Some examples came up as well. I guess I'm just trying to kind of picture how would this move forward, and then that accountability. We have the internal integrated action plan teams, and then I'm hearing some, as ELIP gets reimagined, maybe that is a forum, and however you all plan to roll out the annual State of Immigration and Settlement report, potentially there's another forum for regular check-ins with community, on top of all the engagement you'll be doing. Am I right? Does that sound about right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, because that is a lot of work, and you're going to do a lot of that with the existing resource.
Yes,
Okay.
and what we're seeing is the city has really, I think, solidified their space as convener, system coordinator, advocate, partner, amplifier. And so we've now got our staff really working in that space of understanding our jurisdictional lane and seeing how we can leverage community voices and other orders of government to enhance collective success on these various files.
Okay, good. Thank you. I think I'm just a bit worried about that, and just make sure that you all have the tools and resource you need to roll this out. And then just finally, I just want to correct my understanding. Attachment 4 and 5, those engagement reports, that was done for the last time when the annual State of Immigration and Settlement came forward. But those engagements were done prior to having this intention for this policy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, we're making sure that we're sort of showing the story of engagement. So again, there was early engagement that was done, but we also we did a validation process when we were bringing forward the policy.
Okay, great, perfect. All right, well, thank you, and I'm ready to speak.
Thank you, Councillor Tang. Councillor Rice?
Thank you. I have lots of questions regarding the earlier information provided. So for this new policy, I know we have some other policies, and I also understand we have different orders of government and provide employment services and also provide the settlement services. So I talked about the business community, specific for the multicultural business community. That means those community and then are the immigrants, newcomers, and come to our city and they try to find employment, and then when they face a challenge and then they start some small business, they start some home business. So since this year and from last year, I really want to say city provided lots of opportunity to support the business community. I want to say appreciate that. And then also based on the workshops I organized many times, and our city provided lots of support. So my question to you, and in terms of this new policy, is there any room or any plan how we can increase this support to really make sure those newcomers, not only immigrants, including immigrants, when they come to our city could provide some support, and in terms of if there is less employment opportunities, they have to start their own business, small business. So I just want to get a sense from that.
Yeah, thank you for the comment, Councillor Rice. As you note, inclusive economy is one of those big pillars, and that's a question of how can the city continue to do better on recruitment and retention, as well as how do we support through sustainable procurement, as well as how do we work with community and with other entities to ensure that those opportunities are there, and where our migrants or immigrants are looking to forge their own path through entrepreneurship, that they have the best supports available to them. So that's certainly not only included, but I would say a key pillar within the policy going forward.
I understand that. And specifically, our city actually did one time, I recall, to provide the goods, services, and open to the many people, and then also including migrants and then immigrants. And then do you have the data specifically demonstrate how many and how much services, how much goods, and then we really reflect the immigrants and migrants and from our outside of the city come to our city to really get into that resources, get into that access to the resources?
I don't have that available right now, but our team could certainly look into that and follow up with you offline after committee.
Okay, thank you very much. That's my last question.
Thank you, Councillor Rice. I think we're finished with questions now. I will move the recommendation in the report that Community and Public Services recommend to City Council that the updated policy C529A, migrant inclusion, as set out in attachment 2 of the November 25th, 2024 Community Services Report, CS 00789, be approved. So now we will go to if there's any questions on the motion or amendments to the motion, or if I don't see any, just to speaking to it. Anyone to speak to the motion? Okay, Councillor Stevenson, in the game of chicken, you lost.
Thank you so much. I just want to take a brief moment to say thank you to the team for all this work and to all the stakeholders who provided their input and insights into this. I think one of the most important messages that came through in this report was how the success of newcomers and migrants in Edmonton benefit all Edmontonians. Their ability to participate in our community fully enriches all of us. We depend on newcomers for our city to function and for us to all live our lives. And I think that was really well communicated. So really happy to support this motion today to reaffirm the city's commitment to supporting new Edmontonians and the value that brings to our whole community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stevenson. Councillor Salvador?
Yeah, thank you so much. I also just wanted to take a moment to really appreciate all of the work that went into this update and the extensive engagement that helped center the voices and expertise of migrants and newcomers. I've been reflecting on Edmonton's evolution and the rapid growth that we're experiencing and how migration has always been and remains a cornerstone of our city's collective story. We know that migrants are integral to our social, cultural, and economic fabric. But as we've heard today, systemic barriers do persist. Hearing about access to housing, employment, entrepreneurial opportunities, recreation, and other city services remains a challenge, which underscores how important this work is for building a city where everyone is included and everyone has access to equitable opportunities to thrive in our communities. I think the updated policy reflects our commitment to equity and belonging. It emphasizes inclusive economic opportunities, service access, and culturally responsive engagement. And from my perspective, I do think it outlines a clear high-level roadmap for ongoing, robust engagement with migrant communities, data-driven decision-making, and creates an opportunity for partnership and advocacy to other orders of government that we know we desperately need. Yeah, so maybe just to close off, as we prepare for a population of 2 million, As we heard from speakers today, it is vital that we lead with intentionality to ensure that everyone has an opportunity to contribute their gifts and succeed. So once again, just thanks so much to all of the contributors that have given their time and energy and expertise for this work, and really looking forward to the ongoing implementation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Salvador. Mayor Sohi.
Thank you. I first of all want to thank our staff for working on this for a number of years and bringing this report to us. Really appreciate all the hard work and thoughtful work has gone into this. So thank you for that. I also want to thank community leaders, community organizations. You are driving change in our communities, and without your leadership, the work that we want to do as a municipality would not be possible. I would say actually we are here to support that work, and you are there to lead that work, right? So I think our role is to be those champions as well as provide some of the support that is necessary. You know, from my experience, lived experience, I always, like I have experienced it, that strong services, accessible and affordable municipal services are integral to people's success. And they're integral for newcomers, their ability and capacity to be successful. So I think that is the biggest role we play as a municipality, making sure that we continue to invest in those core municipal services, public transit, public safety and well-being, housing, recreational facilities, green spaces, all those things that are essential for community well-being are also essential for the well-being of newcomers. So I think that's the main significant role that we play. I also want to acknowledge that there is a growing anti-immigrant sentiment in our society now, whatever the reasons. But I think as a local leaders, we can assure communities. I want to assure people listening to this conversation who are moving to our city that our city will remain a welcoming place for everyone, that we will continue to support newcomers and continue to create conditions for their success, because immigration is not only essential for our economic growth, for our workforce growth, but I would say diverse communities are also better communities and also healthier communities. I think I like the focus areas as well. I think the focus on an inclusive economy is important because we want to create opportunities for everyone. And I already spoken about access to services and equitable access and affordable access. And I want to briefly touch on neighborhood inclusion. I think this council has been pretty courageous in implementing some changes that have removed a lot of barriers to build the diversity of housing that we need in our mature, redeveloping neighborhoods to provide that choice, that those neighborhoods are becoming more inclusive through creating those inclusive housing choices. And also see an opportunity coming up next year for a further engagement by our elections office. And I want to speak to data as well. I think if we don't have the good data, we can't measure the success, right? That's important as well, that we have continued to advance on that as well, right? So and leadership and advocacy, I will continue to, and I think this council will continue to be the strong champion of inclusion, diversity, and welcoming people to this place. So that, once again, congratulations to everyone involved, all the administration, and those who are here, who are not here, and also the community for leading this. A lot of work ahead of us, but I think we will continue to travel on this journey together. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Sohi. Councillor Tang?
Great, thank you. Thank you very much. I've heard a lot of positive comments about this report, not just from the speakers today, but also in the community. And just want to convey gratitude to your team for stewarding this process in such a good way. I think it's a really smart approach, developing a corporate and community plan, followed by action plan, followed by investment plan to leverage everything we have within our toolbox and what's coming up from the other orders of government. Oftentimes, when times get tough, immigrants are seen as scapegoats for our problems. Or during election times, they tend to become a capture audience all of a sudden. But, as someone who have, spent a lot of my professional time prior to being elected working in the newcomer and multicultural community space, I actually feel really confident in the approach that you have all taken working with community. So I want to really thank you for that. And I heard flawless engagement, which I never hear about city engagement. So I feel like there's something here that must be shared with other areas that do engagement about how can we continuously improve our processes. Perhaps I'll take a different lens on this. I'm a board member with Alberta Municipalities, and we for years actually implemented a grant program called Welcoming and Inclusive Communities. It's a partnership with the government of Alberta, and through that channel, we grant out to smaller municipalities about how to create the environment to retain and foster or to set up newcomers for success in that community. Because without them, questions around municipal viability, around economic growth is constantly on the table, and people are leaving. And so for them, it's actually really critical to play that role in the newcomer space. And I think I see this as part of that. A lot of smaller towns don't have the same kind of resource that we do, and the same kind of community network as we do. But this isn't just a big city issue. This is actually an issue we are seeing across the province, across the country. And I'm really pleased with the approach we've taken on this item moving forward. I recognize that there's been a lot of great past work I want to highlight as well. There's been engagement done, leading up to the last time the annual State of Immigration and Settlement came forward. But years ago, actually, I was part of an organization called the Multicultural Coalition, and they actually did a study with EFCL about how to, through the community system, be more welcoming to the newcomers and to the new immigrants moving into those neighborhoods, because sometimes there is that divide. And I recall, a lot of the BIAs, even where in their catchment there's lots of immigrant-led, newcomer-led businesses, and they're creating workshops or environment to kind of build that capacity. So I think there's a lot to draw upon and to amplify. I've also shared other ideas through offline conversations, and I look forward to seeing how those might be integrated and supplemented and amplified through your ongoing engagement with community. There's no doubt we think about lanes all the time. I also feel the urgency, in the last year, out of 65,000 people coming to Edmonton, 47,000 of them were immigrants. We're now top 100 cities in the world to live in because of the sense of belonging we're creating in our community, because of the cultural and artistic vibrancy, because of affordability and the public service. Those things don't just come by. Those things come with very strong intention and resource and people to back them up. And I think more than ever, our role as a city is to, we're the place where people come to, and we have to really cultivate and retain talents, to build that economy, build a community. It's not just about getting people to come here, but help them stay here, to thrive, to put roots down and contribute back. So, last time I heard community loud and clear. They want us to move from talk to action, and I'm glad that we're moving in this direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tang. Councillor Jans?
Yeah, again, wanted to echo my praise for the team for all of the hard work here. I love the saying, and I try and teach my children the saying that, every new neighbor is a new potential best friend. And I see that sentiment embodied in this report today, that it's about helping more people find a sense of home, find a sense of belonging. I love how it underpins strong municipal public services as a core component of creating that welcoming space. I'm glad that it's been articulated how we can't do this alone, how we really need the provincial and federal government to help us here. It's no use to have an Alberta is calling campaign if you have nobody here to answer the phone and help people get set up and get settled and thrive. I think a lot about how our critical investments in the library, especially having Sunday hours this year in this budget, has been so core to helping so many folks. I'm a regular of the library program, obviously with my kiddos and my family, and seeing so many people there getting services and getting connections. Settlement is not just a one-time thing; it's a constant process and a discovering and a rediscovering and rediscovering your community, and knowing that we have assets like our incredible rec centers, our library programs, and so many other assets that we can invest in, I think are so critical. It evokes for me a lot of the imagery of our parks, and I can't wait for Horlock Park to be open again because, it's anecdata, but I've often had many an experience where I go to a municipal park and I'm the only Caucasian person there, and that there's many newcomers speaking many languages, and just how critical it is, especially for folks who are new to Edmonton or are new to the community, to have these welcoming public spaces where people can go out and engage with nature. I think is so critical. Finally, again, I think it's shocking, but it's not shocking to see the data, the fact that 1 in 3 in the presentation, one in 3 Edmontonians in 2011 would have been a newcomer, and that's exciting, and it shows not only are we growing, but we're growing together, and that's really exciting. And this weekend, I was at a event with graduate students at the University of Alberta, and we were talking about the retention and building the knowledge economy and building the kinds of new industries and opportunities in the Edmonton area. And we can't do this alone. We need talent from around the world, and we need to make sure that when they come here, that it isn't just a great place to work, but it's a great place to put down roots and build a family and build a future. And that was what I was focusing on sharing with them, just about why you'll have a lot of different people inviting you to come and move to Boston or Montreal or London or other major centers, but nowhere else can you have such a wonderful quality of life for you and your family and the folks around you as Edmonton. So in conclusion, this report was excellent because I think it really built on our strengths and came from an appreciative inquiry lens that, there's a lot well here that we need to keep building on. So I think the speakers as well from the community who came and shared and kept pushing us, I think we need to be constantly encouraged to keep doing more here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And before I go to Councillor Rice, I'm just gonna check in on orders. Do I have unanimous consent from the committee to finish this item? Because with 2 more speakers, it'll go beyond noon. Okay. So that's unanimous consent just to finish this item. Councillor Rice, please go ahead.
Thank you. I try to be short, and because my colleagues speak so well and covered lots of great points, I would like to speak the same thing. So I just want to say 32.5% of Edmontonians' population are immigrants, and that's a big number, and I'm one of them. And I really appreciate our city's many years and focus on our core services and focus on providing the services and actually to everyone and include immigrants. And then reflecting my own experience as an immigrant and to Edmonton, this is only city and I lived. And this city actually look at my own experience and with all those support from government services and community services. And we have 2 community leaders come to speak and talk about and how the community services play the role and in support our newcomers as well. So my own experience, and then I would like to speak loudly and then reflect our city's value and to really support and including and newcomers in our city and provide services to them, provide access to them, and for them to settle down, and also for them to find a job, for them to develop their career, and for them to create their own business. And every steps as an immigrant and come to our city, and without city's government support, and without and community services support, and then we work together, actually make sure everyone come here is welcomed. So I want to say that experience and that dear to my heart. I cannot say thank you enough to our city. I cannot say thank you enough to our Edmontonians and even many, many strangers and who support lending hands and to our newcomers, immigrants to this city. So definitely, and from today's conversation, and I really appreciate our city try to advance the work, even to provide the more support and more access and to the immigrants and under our scope we could do. And also that collaboration and with different orders of government, the collaboration and with different communities. And that is also another important approach to make sure everyone come to our city to find here and to call there as a home. So I want to say thank you everyone for that. And in terms of something based on the feedback we heard and also based on myself as a city councilor in the past 3 years, interact and engaged and involved with so many different minority communities. And so I do want to say the one thing to improve is I believe our work still have the room to really make sure, and no matter they come from each background, speak different language, have different cultures, and that or they have their own community organizations come from different community. Like my question mentioned earlier, our city has over 70 minority communities, and how to make sure those communities, not only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and is like broadly, and everyone feel like they have same access and they have same services, they have same connection with our city, and they involvement, engagement with our city, and they feel is everyone is equally included. And I know our city did a great job on this social inclusion and also neighborhood inclusion, and I still thinking and we have room to improve, to advance through this new policy implementation. And by that way, and everyone will feel, yes, we are here. We work together. We support each other to build the great city and for everyone and where we call our home. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rice. And I will just close and first of all, gratitude to the administration and thank you for answering so comprehensively my line of questioning. I may still consider and discuss with you in between now and council a potential subsequent, but it would be out of order for me to do it before a policy is approved to do the subsequent, so just flagging that. I wanted to start with, we've talked a lot, but I think for the public it's important to hear what the policy says is the definition of migrants. So migrants refers to individuals born outside of Canada and their immediate descendants who have settled in Edmonton. This population is diverse with distinct overlapping identities shaped by various factors including place of origin, length of residency, generational status, and intersectional identities such as gender. And the report actually had a line in it, it was actually right at the intro, that I think just summarized so well what so many of my colleagues have also said. So I think instead of reinventing it, I know as much as many Edmontonians probably love to just read all of these agenda packages, I think it's just a really important thing to pull out is that migrants are essential for Edmonton's growth and development. Economic development, providing economic, social, and cultural benefits. As Edmonton's migrant population continues to expand, administration as a unique opportunity to champion policies and practices that not only welcome migrants, but also actively leverage their diverse skills, perspectives, and talents, which are crucial for community building and economic development. And I think that just sums it up so beautifully. And it was such a strength-based sentence. And I remember even reading in one of the reports that often the migrant communities felt like they were talked about in a deficit or a needs-based. And so just that really strength-based start of the report, I thought was really phenomenal. And I think it's funny that we still use the term minority sometimes, because as we know, by the time we hit 2 million, and in many cities already, newcomers, migrants, people of color are not the minority. They're actually the majority now. And so I think we need to recognize them as the important integral tapestry of the community that they are. But it's not easy being a migrant. I mean, I'm obviously many generation Canadian. My family came to Saskatchewan in like the 1900s. So I can't speak from personal experience, but I have the privilege and honor to represent an area of the city that does have a lot of migrant populations that call Warden Olnick and the North Side home. And I hear their stories. I talk to them on a regular basis, and I hear the struggles they're having. I hear about Ukrainian refugee families that have actually left Edmonton and come back to Ukraine because it was just so hard to make a go of it here. I hear from the Africa Center about people that are just all the barriers they have to getting jobs because they have these amazing qualifications, but they're not recognized. I hear about people that want to find a job, but transit isn't as accessible to them, or they don't even know how to navigate it because maybe English isn't their first language, and it's just really intimidating. These are the stories that I hear from residents, so I think that we know we need a lot. There's a lot more that can and will be done as a result of this work, and so I'm very excited to support that. And lastly, I will also, since the election has come up a few times, I will take a moment to just say, we have one barrier on council that hasn't been hit yet, and we have never had a Black community representative on council in the history of Edmonton City Council. And I, for one, truly hope that 2025 is the year that we have somebody that can represent that community and bring that diversity, which represents such a huge proportion of our population in Edmonton, at this decision-making table. That is the hope and the aspiration that I put out there. So with that, let's please vote.
We have all the votes.
Please display the votes. That is carried. And just quickly going through, any responses to reports? None. Private reports? None. The only thing I have is, are there any motions, notices of motions or motions without customary notice from any of my colleagues on committee? Councillor Hamilton? No? Okay. So we